So this session, we're going to talk a little bit about our patient registries and the importance of this for research. I'm going to co-share this session with Dr. Jackelyn Orabone, who's on our scientific advisory board. So I'm going to cover the first section and then she'll take over. Jackie, can you move on to the next slide? So just to kind of talk a little bit about the way we collect information at the foundation. We have the NCBRS patient registry, which is really based on the information that when you join the group initially, Lee sends out a kind of an Excel form and you're just filling in some basic information on your child. We've updated this form recently to add on things like genetic information. Then we have the CoRDS registry, which is CoRDS Sanford Research. Jackie's going to talk about that. And that kind of collects much more extensive information, which kind of really looks at kind of the phenotypic kind of description, all the symptoms that your child experiences. And then we're going to talk a little bit about a new, well, it's not so new, this study that we started in Germany in probably about a year and a half ago. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and you know, that's still open for people to join if they wanted. Next slide. So, you know, I want to talk about, you know, the reasons we set it up, kind of our initial steps and our process for collecting information, some of the challenges that we've maybe experienced along the way, and the next steps going forward. So we'll go on to the next slide, please. So why did we want to set up the registry? And this kind of could be the more detailed registry. We wanted to, first of all, when we were collecting the information on our kind of own NCBRS family list, we wanted to understand the incidence and severity. So we wanted to see how many people we had, where they were based, to kind of get an idea of how many people this affected. We also did this because we collected that information and we were able to make connections with people in local areas. So there's also a lot of kind of subgroups, not foundations, but subgroups in different countries where people are then connected because they're aware of each other. And we obviously, once we kind of get people onto our list, we're adding them to our Facebook group and they're part of that community. It's also important to drive research, and we can see the importance of that now. There's a number of new studies starting up, which is really encouraging. To drive awareness by kind of doing that registry on our website, we have different stories of different patients with NCBRS, so kind of people can see kids with different age ranges in different countries and what kind of symptoms they're experiencing, and it helps kind of it also helps researchers look at that and understand more about the condition. And mapping out the condition, kind of how it progresses over time and in age. And the adult study that we'll talk about at the end is kind of important for that, because I think it's important to understand what's happening in the adults in order to be able to look at the care plans for younger children and what's important to implement early and those kind of interventions. Next slide. So as I said, we started very simply. So Lee would have set up this Excel tracker at the beginning back in 2015. We just documented very basic information: the name, the age, the date of birth, the gender, the guardian name. And this was just to help us set up that kind of community. It was just all stored on our private Facebook page. So it was only accessible to people within our community, and kind of entry into the Facebook group was kind of monitored and only given to direct family members. But back in 2022, we kind of looked at this a bit more. I think with the way Facebook is going, not everyone is seeing all the messages we're putting on there, and you know, there seems to be different kind of analytics going on in the background too. So what we tried to do is then collect people's email addresses as a way of kind of better communication, updates and things that are happening within the foundation. And part of that was also to start getting genetic information. And that was important for the work that Stephanie was doing, that, you know, presented this morning, where she now has the genetic information for 181 of our patients. So that was updated back in 2022. Next slide. So this is all part of our own group. So this is the kind of information that we have now to see of those. There's 320 patients now that we're aware of. There's 312 in our kind of family list and 8 new ones that we have to add. And you can see how the kind of community has grown from back in May 2015 when they started with 52 people right up to the 320 today. So the community is growing day by day. And I imagine that as genetic testing is becoming more and more common, that, you know, this will probably continue to grow. I know that Stephanie already kind of gave some of these metrics earlier, but you know that the split male female, so there is more of a almost 59% male to 41% female, so from our family list. But just to kind of as well, it's interesting to know the age range. So to kind of understand this, the eldest patient that we have on our list at the moment is 52, and the youngest is, well, not even one. So we have quite a range there. But you can see that the majority, 72%, are still less than 18 years of age, because I think that's really down to the genetic testing and the way it's done. That's not to say that there's not more adults out there, but maybe they haven't been tested. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of the spread across the different continents. Again, I mean, I think Europe and North America have a lot more. And I believe this is probably more because of the availability of genetic testing. Like, we only have one person in Africa, but then again, it's probably not as accessible. So again, I'm sure there are a lot more in Asia and Africa. South America, the testing seems to be improving, because over the last couple of years, we're seeing a lot more coming in South America. Brazil in particular, we have quite a few. But, you know, it is still an ultra rare condition. So the Food and Drug Administration in the US kind of classifies a rare disease as one that affects less than 200,000 people in the US, or less than one or EU, it's like 1 in 2,000. But our kind of instance is more like 1 in a million, right? So when we look at kind of the density of the different regions and the instance, at least that we're aware of. We can go on to the next slide, please. Now, obviously, we're only aware of what we're aware of. That's not to say. So, I mean, it's our best accurate assumption. What we're trying to see if those numbers are accurate. Now, we know that we reach out to a lot of physicians and different genetic databases around the world, and we send information on NCBRS, and we ask that they send that information on to, if someone is diagnosed or newly diagnosed in the system, we want that information to be shared so that they can reach out to us and become part of the community. We are also, through Stephanie and her connections with these databases, reaching out to find out how many they have on their databases in other countries, to then compare that to how many we have on our family list. And that can give us, sorry, the sound? No.
Yes, but try that.
Okay. So then if we have an idea of how many are in these genetic databases compared to how many we're aware of, we can at least apply a factor as well to have a good idea of how many there are globally. Next slide. So why are we doing this register? Is this actually, hang on a minute, do you want to, I don't see what number slide I'm on. Is this yours now, Jackie?
No, I don't know if you can hear me. You're good.
Oh, hang on a minute. Let me hear you. No, okay, good.
Keep going.
So why did we want to develop a more detailed registry than we had in our initial list? As I say, we wanted to get more detailed information on clinical features. So we wanted to develop a kind of a questionnaire which went through all the different body systems, all the different types of symptoms we're seeing. And that gave us a better idea of, you know, the information on how many people had epilepsy, how many people. So all the information that Stephanie would have shown earlier is the result of us having this registry database. So it gives a much better idea for researchers on what areas we really need to concentrate on, and Dr. Harris's research as well. You know, it's an idea of the different things that are affected. We wanted to get more detailed information on the genetic mutations. The reason we need that is because obviously we're looking at what Stephanie explained earlier, what genetic mutations are causing more severe forms and milder forms. We want to understand that, because if we want to then go into looking at models of disease, we need to understand, well, what's the most common mutation? What's the one that's affecting patients the most? So that was really important to collect that information. And we wanted to understand conditions that may arise as they get older. So, you know, we kind of ask everyone to go in and fill in the registry once a year. So the first year you might go in and maybe the patient doesn't have epilepsy, but maybe as you go on, as the years go on, you can see how the condition changes over time. And then, as I say, in the adult ones, it gives us a better idea of what to look out for in the younger patients. So why did we go with CoRDS? It was, well, first of all, as a charity, we were looking at, it was free of charge to us. So that wasn't the main reason, but that was one of the reasons. They offered this service to rare disease charities. So that was good. And what we also liked is that the patients own the data. So it's ultimately control its use. So you can kind of define if you want to share it with the foundation, who you want to share it with. And you can decide at any time you want to, I suppose, remove your data. We had the ability to design our own questionnaire. So it meant that we could focus the questions on the areas that we felt were important. And we also have the ability to edit that over time if there's different things we need to add in and ask about. It means then that as people go in and update the next time, they can answer those questions. So yeah, next slide, please. So in terms of the awareness campaign, I know that when we rolled this out initially, we did a Zoom call, we did a social media campaign, we're emailing out to people, and we have details on our website. But I just wanted to put a show of hands in the room. Who is actually aware of this CoRDS registry, you know? So, I think we have a good proportion of people, which is good. Okay. Because I think, you know, I know that some people, when we had the UK meeting, you know, some people weren't aware. So we were like, well, what do we need to do to help? What else can we do to make sure? Well, it's good response in this room anyway. So we do have support files in the private group on how to fill it in. And we were looking at some countries now. The only thing is that when we set up the CoRDS registry initially, it was just in English. And they had promised to kind of translate this to make it easier for different countries to fill in, but that hasn't actually materialized yet, unfortunately, but hopefully that will be in progress. Next slide, please. I've already kind of said that, some of these things, but so how many, not to kind of, yeah, put anyone on show here, but I mean, if anyone has filled it in, I mean, how user friendly do people find it? Yeah.
I would say that it was pretty user friendly to use. However, making sure that you have your genetic testing information readily available with you when you do the registration is really helpful, because they're going to ask questions that you can obtain. You need that documentation.
Yeah, that's great. Just one point to make is that you don't have to fill it in all in one go. So you can go in and you can answer everything you have. And if you don't have your genetic information to hand, you can save what you have and then you can log back in at any time. I know we recommend yearly, but you can log back in. Once you set up your account, you can log back in at any time and update it as often as you want. But it is good. The genetic information is really important. So if you have that ready to hand, that would be great. Anyone else got any feedback?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I've started. Are we talking about like the CoRDS registry?
yeah.
So I've started Veda's registry, but I have yet to finish it because it's a lot. It's a lot of information. So if any of you have not started it yet and you're planning to, just book out some time for it. And just know that it takes a minute. Like I have to get back in there and finish it. And I've known about Veda's diagnosis for a year and a half. So I need to make the time to finish it, but it's a lot. So if you haven't started it yet, just know that you need some time to really sit down and do it.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of tick boxes in there, but it does go through all the different body systems. So, at the first time you do it, it probably is quite a bit of time, but once you've got it done once and you just need to update it, then it's quite a quick process. Okay. But just to know that, as I say, we do have paper copies available in some languages, although the live translations aren't available, as you're filling it in. And I know that they're working on that. But just be known that the safety and privacy of the data is very secure. There's a process by which researchers have to go through to get approval to access it. When you fill it in, you have the option to know whether you share the information with the foundation or not. Obviously, we would encourage you to do that so we have good information, but we do get access to information in a de-identified form anyway. So, if anyone has any suggestions on how we can make it more user-friendly to fill in or to do, we're obviously very open to do that. So, you can tell us offline if there's any particular issue you have. So yeah, if we can go on to the next slide.
This is me, Nuala.
Now this is yours, I think. Jackie.
Yep. Can you hear me? Oh.
Yes. I couldn't see what number slide.
There you go, Jackie. You should be okay now.
Okay, just want to test. Are we all good? Can everyone hear me? Yes? In the room? Yes? Okay. I don't hear anything from the room any differently, so I'm going to start speaking. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to briefly introduce myself before I go into my slides. My name is Jackie Orabone. I am a parent to my son Henry, who has NCBRS. He is 4.5, and he was diagnosed in October of 2023. So we're relatively new to this, but it's been a little bit. I also am a basic scientist, so I have a PhD in immunology, and because of this, I am on the scientific advisory board, and it's been such a privilege to be part of that process. I used to do research, and now I've moved into the healthcare communications field, where I help pharmaceutical companies in the last stage of drug development, which is where they go to an advisory committee meeting with the FDA. And so this can be the last step in the process before a drug is approved. And that's where I'm at now. So it kind of puts me in a unique position. And I wanted to discuss very briefly in one slide how a drug or therapy is developed in the US. And I actually just put this together during this morning because there were a lot of questions in the chat about gene therapies and new things that are coming to market for certain conditions. And so I just wanted to sort of stress where we're at in the process and what it takes to approve a drug in terms of efficacy and safety in the US. So this is US specific. This is, because the conference is in the US, similar processes happen globally. So in the US, we're sort of in the discovery and the preclinical phase. So you heard some research earlier today from Stephanie and from Dr. Nicolaides about where we're at in terms of preclinical models and mapping genetics. And then we're also still in the discovery mode in terms of really assembling information. So Nuala just introduced the patient registry that the foundation puts together, and then she also briefly described CoRDS. And I'm going to walk you through what some of the data looks like that comes out of CoRDS. But that's still all this information gathering phase. And I want to encourage you that if you are not part of these registries, that you should be. And again, just as Nuala said, I would like to encourage you to share the data with the foundation as well. It is all anonymous. There is no identifying information at all. All we get is an output with the answers to questions, but it does not track back to a specific patient. So this really gives us a good idea of what we're looking at. And like I said, I'll show you some of that data. So after a drug goes through the discovery and the preclinical phase is shown here in the red, it moves on to more so FDA facing. So there's an application that's submitted, and then there's different phases of trials that are established with a candidate, right? And there's many steps where this can succeed. There's many steps where these can fail. But I did just want to point out kind of where we are in the process and how many steps it does take to move through a phase 3 trial, which is in humans, and then moving on to FDA approval. The excellent news is that in the US, there are multiple funding mechanisms available for rare diseases. So FDA is working very hard to put together a multitude of mechanisms to get these drugs approved once we can find the candidates. Okay, so what is CoRDS? Nuala introduced this, so I'm not going to spend too much time, but this is a rare disease registry at Stanford Research. I believe they have, I think it's 10,000 diseases that they host these registries for. And it's a nonprofit institution. This is US based. And you can register for this by going into the participant portal, which is circled here. And I have a few more slides at the end to kind of show you how to do that process. Why enroll in CoRDS outside of, okay, maybe you submitted your information to us through the patient registry. This broadens the scope of the data available to all researchers. So anyone who might be doing research on ultra rare conditions, any researcher could apply to receive some of this data. They don't have to just be doing research on NCBRS. And so we could be part of like a larger study where they're, looking at a ton of data and they're making conclusions, and that's all good for us. It gives us a lot of exposure. And even if the researchers aren't aware of the foundation and the foundation's patient registry, they're able to access this. And like I mentioned, it is all anonymized. And so I just want to make it clear, CoRDS is a separate registry from the NCBRS Foundation Patient Registry. I think sometimes when your child is newly diagnosed, there's a lot that you can go through and see. And so sometimes maybe it gets caught up and you're not sure what's what. So I just want to stress that they are two separate things. So what does the data look like? And again, this is a little bit older, so a lot of numbers have been thrown out. A lot of the same things have been said. I'm going to go through this quickly just to give you an idea of what we're collecting through CoRDS and what we can do with it. This data is current as of last year. In order to get an updated report, it takes a little bit. So we just worked with what we had. The female and male spread is very similar to what has been seen with the other data. And then what you've been hearing all day, 69% of these individuals report seizures, 77% have communication challenges, 70%, have feeding difficulties, and then 34% report scoliosis. We'll get into behaviors, but there's reported behaviors which include overly friendly, always smiling, and then not afraid of strangers or danger. And those were all reported in over 50% of the individuals in the CoRDS registry. And then you can see that the enrollment has decreased a little bit since 2024. We have a table here on the right that shows the number of known patients that we have in the NCBRS foundation registry compared to those that have completed the CoRDS registry. So we are lagging a little bit behind, and ideally we would like to get those numbers to be as close as possible. Okay, so what do we look at here? We ask about, their overall communication abilities. So, are these individuals able to read or write? And how do they communicate, right? So the majority communicate with sounds, not words, although there's a 23% communicate with spoken words, and then there's all sorts of other mechanisms, boards, and gestures. We also look at epilepsy and seizure incidents. Not quite sure why the gray is blank. So 70% have reported the incidence of epilepsy or seizures. And then the specific seizure types are shown here. And then also the seizure frequency. So about 63% have not had a seizure for more than 1 year. 21% is the next highest, who have about 1 to 3 a month. And then you can see that the ones that have increasing frequency are slightly lower percentages, but account for about 16% of the reported population. 32% reported loss of communication following seizures, but 54% regained communication after. We also collect data on feeding issues. So 70% of of individuals have been reported to have feeding difficulties. 14% of those are tube fed. And then some have reflex, aspiration, difficulty swallowing or choking. And 29% were diagnosed as failure to thrive early on. Again, blank is not, it shows as blank. 34% of the respondents reported having scoliosis, with 48% not. And then some bone abnormalities. We drill down a little bit deeper into the specific bone abnormalities as shown there on the right. 45% reported no abnormality and 38% left this blank. So this is sort of a smaller sample size, but there have been some reported as shown here on the bottom. And then as far as reported behaviors, so this is looking at 120 individuals, and the most commonly reported behaviors in them are, 24 reported biting of hands or wrists, and then we start increasing in terms of dangerous behavior, including running off and some obsessive behavior, rarely crying, overly friendly, always smiling, not afraid of strangers, and unaware of danger. Those are in larger percentages of this total population. And then just a little bit more additional summary characteristics, and this is not at all inclusive of everything that we collect, but 77% reported dental issues. That includes delayed eruption of teeth, followed by delayed loss, and some widely spaced teeth. Dermatological issues, 73% were reported, which includes eczema, psoriasis. And then 50% report sleeping issues, and a large percentage have had surgery, 75%, which include hernia repair and ear tubes. So how do we enroll? I showed this before. I'm happy to help anyone. I did put my contact info on here. I'm in the Facebook group. Here's my email. If you need help filling this out, or even figuring out how to sign up for it, please let me know. Again, you can click the participant portal. You can click enroll now as shown here in the red. And then if you are already enrolled, but it's been a while ago, you can log back in and you can hit update questionnaire. So you can fill it out and update the data. That would be super. And this is just kind of what it looks like. So it is, as Nuala mentioned, it's just some tick boxes, right? So there's bubbles, there's yes or no. So not a ton of free response. There are some free response, but you should be able to just click through the majority of it, and you don't have to finish it in one sitting. Okay. Nuala, it's going to turn it back to you to talk about the adult study.
I'm not sure, do we have Dagmar or Svenja on the line still? Do you know, Jackie?
From what I can see, I don't
No.
see them.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I just wanted to we got a couple of slides. This was the study we mentioned earlier that was done in the University of Dusseldorf, but it is a global study and it's to understanding Nicolaides-Baraitser syndrome beyond childhood. So looking at adults with a view to doing the care plans. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so obviously, you know, in terms of they were looking at a number of syndromes and Nicolaides-Baraitser syndrome was one of them. They had enrolled 13 patients. Up until now, they wanted to get about 20 to kind of, you know, have a better power to the study. This study is not, it's probably not as intensive as the one Dr. Harris was talking about. It's a matter of filling in certain kind of questionnaires and forms, some of which need to be kind of backed up by reports and information from your doctors. But it's really kind of to get that overview. And they are going to be doing a publication of this study, which is going to be published next year. So that'll be a good reference tool then for physicians that are looking after patients with NCBRS. So they're systematically documenting, describing clinical features of the adults, really looking at understanding, looking at interventions, looking at preventative measures that can be taken to avoid maybe some of the issues that are seen later. And they have an ethics committee approval for the study in place. But really, yeah, it's 1 hour of your time really to fill in these questionnaires. But I think sometimes though, it might be just getting the support of the physician to kind of sign it off as well. So that it's kind of, the information we're provided is medically validated, I guess. It's completely voluntary, but you know, if there was anyone interested, that this would really help. There won't be anything in the publication that would identify anyone that takes part. It would all be anonymized, but the information will just be analyzed together to look at trends. Next slide. So requirements for participation. If you are interested, you can reach out to either Professor Dagmar Wixerek or Svenja Daxi in Germany. Just email them, their email addresses are there. They'll send you a consent form, which obviously you'd need to complete. And then once that's done, they'll send out the questionnaire. And then, you know, there's also looking at some photographs potentially of different, but I mean, you may or may not want to send those, that's up to you. But you don't need to do that to be participating, basically. So that's just a call out from them to, if anyone was interested in taking part in that. So that was the last slide. So thank you. Oh, sorry, no, it's back to Jackie, sorry, apologies.
It's okay. No, no worries. I just wanted to summarize. Can you hear me? Okay. You can hear me, Lee? You're nodding? Okay, great. So I just wanted to summarize and put this sort of all in one place, everything you've heard today. So what are the mechanisms that we're using to collect patient information? Where we have the NCBRS Foundation patient list, and then we also have the CoRDS patient registry for NCBRS. So both of those are collecting demographic data. And then we had the 3 research opportunities, newer ones that are kicking off that were discussed today. So that is the blood donation to establish the biobank at the Coriell Institute that was happening on site. But then if you are virtual and you'd like to participate, they will mail you a tube kit that you can take to any lab, and then you can mail it back. So it is possible to participate. And then there's the NCBRS clinical trial readiness study that Dr. Harris introduced. I put the email there. Again, if you aren't there in person today, but you do want to participate, the first step is a virtual collection of reports. You email them, they'll consent you in, and then tell you everything you need to know about how to participate. And then finally, there's the adult study through the University Hospital at Dusseldorf. And those emails were on the previous slide, but I'm happy to include those as well. I can put those in the chat for anyone who is interested in joining those. Thank you.